And good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for coming back to another session of Opportunity Makers. Before I introduce my guest this morning, as has been my tradition, I'm going to do a land acknowledgement. In Canada, where I live, we're making efforts around our Truth and Reconciliation to really honor our Indigenous people and the traditions and the role that they have played and continue to play as caretakers of this beautiful land. I live in Muskoka, which is about 2 hours north of Toronto. And so acknowledging the Chippewas of Rama, the Wattamohawk First Nation, and the Métis Moon River Inuit, and are the folks that really represent our land up here in Muskoka. So wherever you are, if you can take a moment and just think about the Indigenous populations, the Indigenous people who are those caretakers of your land, and just think about what it is that would recognize and honor them in small ways and in large ways. So thank you for allowing me to do that. This morning, my guest is Tim Riddle. So Tim and I met because we are both Tiny Habits certified coaches. And I thought that he had a really interesting business, discovering blind spots, and not just discovering them, but what to do about them in your marketing efforts. And I'll not talk about Tim. I'll bring him on because he is right here. So first of all, good morning, and thank you for being here, Tim.
Good morning. Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Good. So am I. We have a lot to talk about this morning. So your business is really about helping and supporting financial advisors.
Correct.
So if you're not a financial advisor, or if you're not working on behalf of financial advisors, I'm not a financial advisor. I do happen to work with a lot of them, but I'm going to be able to take away a lot of great information from my own business as well. So wherever you are, and whatever role you play, I think there's something in this conversation for you this morning. Why don't we just start, though? Tell us, Tim, a little bit about the business that you have, Discover Your Blind Spots.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again. Thanks for having me. So our business started about 5 years ago, and the primary purpose of it was to work with companies who want to build relationships with clients and prospects. So it just so happens that it dovetailed into financial advisors. And I have a good friend of mine who was an advisor, and I've known him forever, and we ride bikes together. And we were out on a bike ride on a Friday afternoon. And so we started, as we began, we kind of slow pedal and, how's your life and how's business and how's your family? And I was starting this business, and I said to him, I said, Jeff, how do you nurture relationships with your clients and your prospects? And he said, he looked at me kind of funny, and he said, I meet with them. I have lunch with them or whatever. I mean, what do you want me to say? And I said, how many do you have in your database? How many clients? And he said, I don't know, maybe 300, 350. And I said, how many lunches did you have last year? And he smiled and said, yeah, obviously not that many. And so I said to him, I said, so what if we were able to use your voice to your audience, not canned material, but your voice to your audience? We might use video as well, and to nurture those relationships and use some automation, good automation, not bad automation that you can see it coming a mile away. So it's personalized. And he said, I'm in, if you can get it through compliance. And of course, that's a little bit of a struggle, but we've been able to navigate that. And so that's a kind of a little bit of a snapshot of what we do, just helping advisors or any business that wants to use their voice to communicate with their audience, which really is clients or prospects.
Yeah. And, we live in a world that is we were just talking about this before we came on air, the kinds of messages that we get from people, everybody trying to sell everybody all the time. And, I'll get a message that says, hello, Opportunity Street. I've been really looking at your business and your website, and I've got some ideas for you. And it's like, if if you were really looking at my business, you'd know my name is an opportunity street,
That's right.
my business.
Yeah.
So it's hard to break through though today because there is so much clutter.
Yes. Yeah, we had my son works with me in the business, and my daughter, and we have a team of about 8 or 9, but it's fun to work with them. And my son and I were driving from one client to another. We had several hours in the car, and I got a message, like, I'd love to connect with you. And I looked at him and I said, I don't know the person, but I said, let's do a little test. I'm going to accept it, and let's look at the clock and see how long it takes for them to want to do business. And I accepted it, and it was like within 3 minutes, it was, hey, I want to do business with you, blah blah blah. And I didn't respond. I wasn't that crass, but I wanted to say, wow, that was a quick date. I mean, like 3 minutes. We dated for 3 minutes, and now you want to get married.
Yep.
And so we see that a lot. I agree.
Yeah. And, I started my business in the spring of 2021. And the last time, so I was in a corporate role for 6 years. And I've been in and out of my own business versus corporate roles. But the last time, so just 6 years now, 8 years ago, it wasn't like this at all. This is a new phenomenon where everybody is selling all the time. And I was doing some automated reach outs to folks. I had a lovely woman on, Alexa Peo, a while ago when we were talking about automation just on LinkedIn.
Mm-hmm.
The number of people who were so resistant to having a conversation because they were afraid that I was going to sell something to them. Right. It's like pushy beyond pushy. So there are blind spots that people have, however, based on their experiences, based on how they've been approached by other marketers, by other businesses. And I pulled some of these off your website. I'd love to talk a little bit about those to start with. So here's a good one, a blind spot. A monthly or quarterly newsletter is enough.
Right. Yeah, we hear that a lot. And, the world has changed in regards to newsletters. Now, there are some marketers who have great newsletters and people wait for them and so forth. But that's not been my experience. That, for example, I have companies I follow and I want their information, but if I get a newsletter from them, typically what that says to me is low priority, and I save it. I put it in a folder, and I'm like, I'll read that when I get time, which usually doesn't happen. And in today's world, a newsletter feels like I'm talking to the masses.
Yeah.
Whereas it feels, what we see is that people respond more when it feels like, I know with automation, you're sending it to a bunch of people, but there's a way to do that so it doesn't feel like you're speaking to a large audience. Yeah. And so email feels like I'm talking to me, or, we're talking together, as opposed to, here's a whole bunch of information. Here's my catalog. Here's my, all of the great things I've done. Take some time and go through that. We just don't see that as being effective. And on the other side, we have clients who use newsletters, but usually the amount of effort to put it together for the readership, when you look at open rates and stuff like that, is usually pretty low. So I'm not saying don't do it. It's just, I wouldn't put all your marketing eggs in that one basket.
Right. And so some of the things to really think about too with a newsletter is, are you providing value?
Correct.
Or are you just trying to sell your wares? Because, you're not going to get read that way. Yeah.
I kind of use the 80-20 rule, in that with marketing, 80% of what you provide should be value, that you're not asking for a sale. You're just trying to develop a relationship and you're providing value. And then 20% of the time you get to ask for a withdrawal. 80% you deposit, 20% you get to withdraw and ask for something. Because otherwise people see that a mile away, as every time I get a message, they're always wanting something. And so you look like the person with the handout all the time, and nobody wants to really be that person.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Canned content is good enough.
Yeah.
There's another blind spot.
Yeah, this is a big one for us. 5 years ago when we started, one of the biggest hurdles that we had to overcome in working, with advisors or clients and so forth, is when we talked about using your voice to your audience. And the default would be, oh, that's too much work. I have stuff from corporate. I just send that. That people don't care what you send. And then what we've now seen is that, and particularly in today's world with markets, when they get volatile and so forth, people, the canned content, it's not that it's bad, but we think what happens is clients look at that and say, wow, this is great information, but you know what? I do business with you. I want to know what you think.
Yes.
So, tell me your voice. I want your opinion. I don't do business with somebody in corporate. In fact, I don't even know those people. I have a relationship with you. And so, if there's canned content that's really good that you want to send, we always say, put your interpretation of that so they at least are able to hear your voice.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. One more, and then we're going to move on to a couple things, because we only have a half an hour. We got 20 minutes.
I understand.
All right. Video is too complicated and time consuming.
Yeah.
That doesn't even
and
cover
I
the
think
fact that I don't think I look good on camera, or, whatever those other things are. So what's the truth there?
Well, so when we started, probably 30% of the marketing content we created for clients was all written. Was video, about 30%. Now it's probably 80% to sometimes maybe even 90%. We were with clients last week, and in 4 days we probably shot 200 videos, kind of thing. And so there, if you haven't used video a lot, it can feel intimidating. The biggest thing is trying to make it too complicated. And you can do it yourself. I mean, everybody has a camera with them they carry around with their phone, and you can do that. But don't try to make it too involved. I've heard horror stories of clients who say, I shot a video with my own phone. How long did it take you? Well, I spent all weekend to get this 2-minute video done. You're going to run out of gas with that, and you can find companies. I mean, obviously we do this, but there are companies all around that'll come in, and in one day, they're able to shoot enough content for you that'll take care of you for 6 or 9 months or so, so it's just working smarter, not harder, so to speak.
Right. And I guess the other thing that goes along with this, which isn't specifically one of the ones that you mentioned, is that, but to do anything other than me doing it myself, it's going to be really expensive.
Yeah.
And I'm just an entrepreneur. I'm just a financial advisor, or, whoever I am. I don't have the kind of budget to do something fancy.
Yeah. That's true. And we always say, look at your opportunity cost and look at the time. So if you spend, 2 days a week shooting your own videos, that's less time with your clients and working on your business and all of that kind of thing. So, it can take you down a rabbit hole, trail, whatever. And you feel like you never get out. And all of a sudden you're a full-time marketing person and you're not a CEO, or, you're not running your business, spending time with your staff and so forth.
And that's sort of interesting, because when you talk about getting 6 or 9 months worth of content, you're going to send it out in snippets, etc. What it says to me is that when you're really clear on your business proposition and the overarching message that isn't necessarily, talking to financial advisors, it's not what happened in the markets yesterday, but your philosophy on what investing looks like.
Yeah.
Or, for me in my consulting business, what is the problem that's trying to be solved, and from a philosophical perspective, I could probably sit down once and get a ton of content if I'm just talking to somebody and kind of being interviewed by them about my business. So, that's very interesting, as opposed to, oh gosh, what happened in the markets this week? And you can still do those things.
Yeah.
That polished video, it sounds like you really want to be more thematic or philosophical, whatever you want to call it. Have I got that kind of right?
Yeah, I think so for sure. I think there's both, but I think there's both, but I do think that we always say, for example, for financial advisors, the default a lot of time is to communicate information, communicate knowledge.
Hmm.
I want to share with you all the things I know. And what we try to encourage is to communicate. You have to communicate knowledge. So, you're in the knowledge business a little bit, but
Hmm.
we also say, don't forget to communicate wisdom.
Yes.
And the thing I always say is people will listen to knowledge, but they'll follow wisdom.
I
And
like
my
that.
example is we all know people who are really, really smart, but we would not follow them. In
Yeah.
fact, sometimes we'll say, how can they be so smart and do so many dumb things,
Yeah.
So you're really looking, and the other part is just staying out of the weeds of the information. I always say to advisors, I say, be honest with me. If you're communicating to clients and they're talking about you at a gathering of friends and family, and you want them to, share, kind of what you do, can they really explain how backdoor Roth IRAs or dollar cost averaging has changed their life?
Yeah.
That's knowledge. They can't interpret that a lot of times. So they want to be able to communicate, wow, I work with somebody, they've solved, they've kind of alleviated my anxieties. They've made things really clear. I'm proactive in that I have a plan now where I felt like I didn't before. Those are the things those are more wisdom type topics. Again,
Yeah.
you have to do both, but don't default to just, sharing with people, this is how much I know, kind of
Yeah.
share a little bit. You have an experience, so share that wisdom from that experience.
Yeah. There's a body of research that has demonstrated that uh, business insights, so that wisdom piece, is 4 times more important to
Mm-hmm.
buyers than just the facts, because you can get the facts anywhere. But I
Yeah.
really like how you position that. People will listen to knowledge, but they will follow wisdom. So if you take
Correct.
nothing away from this call other than that, I think that is a beautiful gem.
Mm.
Okay, so let's talk then. So here's another interesting thing I want to bring out. So you were traveling this week and you were shooting videos, and that's awesome. You started your business 5 years ago, which means at least 2.5 was during the pandemic.
Mm-hmm.
So you could be in a remote area and still get your videos done
Mm-hmm.
professionally and all of this great content that you can send out because you figured that out.
Yeah, we obviously we go on site and we shoot with clients and so forth. We travel all over, but for those more urgent things that happen, or I've got this idea and Tim's 8 hours away. I can't just say, can you be here tomorrow to do this? We have the ability to shoot remotely and to help people. And we started that. Is interesting. We started doing that a couple of years ago. The technology now is great. I mean, we're kind of doing something like that now,
Yep.
and we do it almost every week. We have clients that are, it doesn't mean it replaces the other, but it's a more current information that you need to get out there. You can still communicate. And yes, during the pandemic, obviously that's when our video quantity raised tremendously. And what we heard from clients is that they were hearing from their clients, and the response was not, wow, this is great information. It was, wow, it was so great to see and hear you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
As opposed to, I got a written piece. Like, it was just so great to see your face.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like, wow, that was incredible. It was just that personal connection that video allows you to do.
Yeah. Don't underestimate the value of video, and don't overthink how you look, because, looking at yourself, other people see what you're seeing. So, like, forget about you. It's not about you. It's about the
Go
message.
ahead. I'm sorry.
So, so let's shift, because we've got about 10 minutes left.
Yep.
You're a marketing guru. I have been doing sales training forever. And the two were like,
Yeah, we're
I
not
was
supposed to like each other, are we?
we're not supposed to, well, we're supposed to be at war with each other. So, not as much when you're an entrepreneur, because those two things do hopefully at least go together.
Right.
But it is all it needs to be consistent. And I have this great story. So I won't say the company, but some on the call might guess. So I'm doing sales training. And part of the conversation build is using these thematic pieces, right? There's 5 different conversations that you can have. These are all thematic things that are important to the client. And one of the very seasoned sellers says to me, "This is great. Like, where'd you get these themes from?"
Right.
I said, "Your national marketing campaign? Like, where do you think I got? Like, I don't,
Right.
like, why would I just make this stuff up out of my head?" It wasn't that it was so brilliant or not obvious, but it was the national marketing campaign. But
Right.
of course, marketing and sales were not talking to each other.
Right.
And even for the entrepreneur, you can have all the polished marketing and the polished messages and all of that kind of thing, but you got to translate that into a sales conversation.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. We do say they're totally different. And even in our language, we always say marketing and sales as if they're the same thing. We always say marketing is the planting, sales is the harvest.
Mhm.
Last time I checked, the farmer doesn't plant today and harvest tomorrow. However, the planting has got to lead to it, needs to lead to a harvest,
Right.
or you're wasting your money. And then, to me, marketing is just great communication that nurtures client relationships and nurtures prospect relationships. And we always say, from a client standpoint, it nurtures that relationship to keep the sale.
Yep.
65% of clients who leave in a relationship type business do so because of indifference. They don't feel
Mhm.
like you pay them enough attention.
Mhm.
The other reason you nurture clients is you want them to talk about you,
Yep.
so you want them to be clear about that. And then prospects is to nurture that relationship so that you can close the sale.
Yep.
And, to warm them, to warm a cold lead to a warm lead. But as we talked at the beginning, people want that dating cycle to be instantaneously. Let's have a 3-second date and get married.
Yep.
And there seems to be not a lot of patience to spend that time nurturing,
Yeah.
that relationship. And me, it's about a weeding out. If it's not the right client, your marketing can help weed that out. If your message is clear, it
Mhm.
identifies who's great for you, but it also identifies who's not. So why waste your time on somebody that's not going to be the right client for you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I always think about, selling absolutely can be done through a marketing campaign. I can listen to your mess. I can follow your wisdom and then make that outbound call to you. But
Right.
for me, the sale is still it when you're not selling a widget, right? When it's a relationship that you're building, it's the conversation that you
Yes.
have. And you can't do all this great, wonderful, wisdom-based marketing and walk in on that first meeting and just spew product. So
Yes.
you really have to be aware
Yeah.
and understand that the two go together. They have to align.
Yes.
If anything is automated, you better know what it is that you just sent out, because you might get asked about it,
That's right.
which is what happens. I have a husband in real estate, and there's a newsletter that goes out sometimes, and I say, "Oh, that's really interesting stuff." And he says, "What am I saying this month?" Right? Most of
That's
the time
right.
he knows, but sometimes it's like that was completely automated by somebody else.
Yeah.
So aligning those two things and making sure that you're having the right kind of conversation so that your
Yeah.
marketing efforts don't end up falling dead. Sometimes
Absolutely.
sales is going to lead the conversations. And I worked with a lot of vendors in my corporate environment where I wasn't looking for anything from them other than my one-on-one conversations. That's where we were going to make the sale. But other times it is the marketing that's going to lead. So
Yeah.
just make sure those things are aligned.
Yeah, and I think, and to put the, in my marketing hat is not to say marketing is always the winner, and then sales don't mess it up. I see a lot of times what I call people market in silos. They're like, here's your marketing plan. It's like, well, do you want to even know what our business strategy is
Oh my
and who our
gosh.
ideal, that kind of thing. And it's sort of like, gosh, wouldn't it be great if they were able to be aligned? So, I mean, we do see sometimes it's like, oh, yeah, we know what to say. And do you really know what to say? I mean, let's figure out how to make these two things work really well together.
I know. We only have 4 minutes, but again, like the corporate examples of that, where, I'm sitting in a meeting I'm in the sales department, and marketing comes in and tells us all about their plan for the year. And you think, well, when did we present the business plan?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
and sometimes that's happened in the background, but it's just not clear. And I think that's the other piece too, is that if you're marketing something, communicate how that fits with the strategy of the business.
Yeah, a great example of that. Just real quick story. I know our time's about up, but recently I was talking to someone about a service they wanted to provide our business. And so the marketing person called and set up the sales call. But in between, the marketing person said, here's a link to a video. It'd be great for you to watch that to be prepared for the call. So I clicked on the link to the video, and it was a 3.5-hour webinar they wanted me to watch before the sales call. And that's an example to me where if I'm in sales, I'm like, you're crazy.
Yeah,
What
because
are
I
you
have
doing
that much
killing me
time.
here?
Yeah. Oh, that's
Yeah.
funny. That's
Yeah.
funny. Oh my gosh. Okay, we could talk forever, but our time is up. So
Yes.
how can people get in touch with you, Tim? Here we go. So Tim at discoverblindspots.com. You can
Mhm.
take a look at Tim's website where you can also see and purchase your first book. But you were also telling me that you are in the close to final editing stages of
Yes.
the new book.
Yes.
And what's the new book called?
Well, the title is it's about marketing blind spots, but that's a boring title. So I'm trying to figure that out. The first
All
book
right.
was more of a self-growth type book. This book is strictly for marketing for financial advisors, and hopefully it'll be out. The goal is by September.
Oh, fantastic.
Yeah.
Fantastic. We'll watch for that. And Tim, this was really, really great.
Thank
Um,
you.
well, thank you so much for being here. And thank you. Carl Dennis says, sounds like good wisdom. I think that was back on the comment about following wisdom. I'm going to steal that. Sorry.
Yeah, that's
Stealing
okay. I
that line
love
from you.
being with you, and thanks for the opportunity.
All right. And for my regular viewers, next week we're back to Monday, and we're actually at 9 o'clock with my good friend Deborah Bakhti, who this time is personal. This is about the emotional journey when you have a family member, which a lot of us are at the age where it's either happening or it could happen in the next few years, when we have to make those tough decisions about putting our parents into long-term care and that emotional journey. So it is very, very personal next time. And I really hope that you can join us. Deb will be sharing her very personal story, and we'll look forward to that. I'll be posting something about that later today. So again, thank you everybody for being here, and we will see you next week.